This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today's reflections for the second Sunday in Lent are from Mark 8:31 through 38, and is the first of three predictions of Jesus' suffering, rejection, death, and resurrection in the Gospel of Mark. In today's Gospel, we find that Peter was adamant that what Jesus predicted didn't have to happen. It should not happen. He goes as far to take Jesus aside. I envision this scene in today's time as if they're in a courtroom and there's a sidebar conversation as not to taint the jury pool. And he rebukes Jesus. Jesus doesn't change the narrative because what he is saying is the truth. In fact, he goes as far to rebuke Peter as he contrasts the life of discipleship with the ways of the world in a rather harsh shock value statement. Do you relate to Peter? I do. Many times I ask the same question. Why? Why must it be this way? Because what is happening or will happen makes no sense to me. What good could it possibly accomplish? Our view is restricted by what we know at a specific point of time. God knows so much more. As I was preparing the reflections for today, I thought back to earlier in the week when my 5.5-year-old grandson Miles and I were making a cake. I had bought this special Castle cake pan. It was really cool. We followed the directions to a T. Yet when we inverted the pan to take the cake out on a platter to frost it, it didn't want to come out. Well, eventually it did in many pieces. Miles' face was crestfallen. It wasn't the way we anticipated. It didn't look like a castle cake at all. In fact, it could have resembled the scene of Jesus destroying the temple. As the tears were brimming and about to spill over, I handed Miles a piece of cake. I had plenty to choose from, and said, I know it's not what we expected, but taste and see what you think. He did, asked for another bite, and says with a mouthful of cake, Grandma, it didn't turn out the way we thought, but it is still good, very good. Peter struggled because he has an image of what the Messiah is supposed to do and who the Messiah is supposed to be. Perhaps we all have a little of Peter's personality, our own images and wishes about who Jesus is and what he should do. Peter's problem in today's gospel is still a problem for us as Christians. Jesus responded that Peter was thinking from the world's view, not as God thinks. Truth be told, as humans, we can't grasp the complexity of life as God can. Oh, but how we try. We try our best to come up with all the answers. Many, many things in this life we attach our expectations to. That is our human nature. It's also the standard by which we measure success or failure. Our own expectations and our own measuring stick, often influenced by society, is what usually drives our actions. We can become stubborn and set in our ways. The lens through which we look at things and the way they are to God don't always line up. Like Peter in today's gospel, our earthly lives or circumstances in them may or may not turn out the way we anticipated, the way we want life to be. Miles learned that day, while we followed the rules, did everything in our power to achieve the outcome. It still didn't turn out what we had hoped for. But it really didn't matter what shape the cake came out of the pan. It was still good, really good. It's been said that experience is always the hardest teacher because you take the test before you learn your lesson. May we trust God and have faith God will get each of us through the learning process of getting to know Jesus and his ways. What we all learn from this gospel text, the first of the three predictions of Jesus' suffering, of his death and resurrection, is that God is in control. Always has been, always will be. Jesus' suffering, his death on the cross, wasn't what Peter desired, but it wasn't the end. We are reminded of this as we speak the words of the Nicene Creed. For our sake, he was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered, died, and was buried. On the third day, he rose again in fulfillment of the scriptures. He ascended into heaven, is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. Peter discovered, although it wasn't what he envisioned, it was good, really good. As we continue on our Lent journey, come and taste, see for yourself how good it really is. Amen.